Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned. I'm here with Bachman, the coach, John Burnham Bachman.
I'm here with the vet, Griffin, Ian Griffin. What's up, man?
Man, it's James Bond season. Can you believe this stuff?
It's kind of crazy. Now, you just saw it. I haven't seen it.
I did.
So
I will not reveal any spoilers in this. I would love to, but I don't think that's right. It's 2 hours and 43 minutes. I loved it. My wife said she didn't like it.
No?
No, she says it was too going this way and this way and this way. That's James Bond. But yeah, that was 2 hours and 43 minutes, and I loved it except for the ending. And but it is what it is. So so today we're talking about James Bond, and the one unique thing about Daniel Craig, and I didn't realize this, I did a lot of research here the other day on this, is unlike all the other James Bonds, all the other James Bond movies with the characters of either Daniel Craig, Sean Connery, Pierce Brosnan, Roger Moore, George Lansbury, and Timothy Dalton, all the other James Bonds, they did a movie and it was a book closed and it moved on. They never discussed the females before it and all this other stuff. Where when you get into Daniel Craig's 5 that he did, every one of them tie the female from the previous one into it. So it's kind of unique. It's a kind of it continues to build. So anyway, so we're going to talk James Bond today for a few minutes. And
this is nuts because my dad was a huge James Bond fan, and I never really was, but I really wasn't when I got older. But when I was a kid, I had to watch a lot of them because he loved it. He loved James Bond and he loved John Wayne. So got a lot of that growing up. So I bet my list would be a little bit older than yours, probably.
Yes. So we're going to talk about our favorite James Bond movies, and we're going to talk about first we're going to start out with our favorite James Bond characters, and we're just ranking them how we want. So I'll let you start out. You go ahead, Coach. However you want to do it, don't matter to me. So.
I know this is going to go all the way back, but from a character, let me just give you a couple of characters. They're actually my favorite one are from the same movie, to be honest with you, from Russia with Love. I love, and you know, I can remember how beautiful Daniela Bianchi was when I was a kid. She played Tatiana Romanoff, excuse me. And I thought, oh my God, she was so beautiful. Even when I first saw this as a kid. And then when I saw it, you know, later on as an adult, I thought, my gosh, she just had this absolute beauty. Also, one of my other favorite characters was the Russian. Gosh, I hope I remember the name correctly. Rosa Klebb. Mm-hmm. She was awesome in the movie. It was like the acting that she had. She kind of reminded me, and older at that time. Barbara Streisand. It was kind of crazy. But anyway, that was a couple of mine just throwing off the top of my head of favorite characters. Of course, not talking about James Bond at all.
So I'll say with the characters from Russia with Love, that there's a total of, and I didn't write them all down, there's a total of 104 villains that he's fought and killed.
Spectre,
and
right?
Say again?
The organization was called Spectre, right?
Spectre, yeah.
Wow.
So, but from Russia with Love, I can't think of the guy's name. I can see him right now, but he is the number one. He was the number one kill of, considered the number one villain of all time.
Robert Shaw? Was that
yes, Robert Shaw. He was considered the best adversary, the number one kill of all time in there. So that's kind of cool. And, you know, there's been some characters with the guy, I think it's called Hit Hat or whatever, the guy with the hat. You had Jaws. You had all those characters. And then, of course, you had the ladies with Barbara Bach in there, Ursula Andrews. And, of course, you had the colorful names that any young boy would love. And now, today's times, politically correct people would go to town on, you know, with Honey Rider or Pussy Galore or whatever, you know. So there's a lot of great things in there. Some just – you can tell it was written by a guy for sure, Ian Fleming.
Oh, poor thing.
Yeah, but there's a lot there. So I think we need to cover first. Let's cover our James Bonds, who we liked and who we didn't think too much of, and all this other stuff. you know,
Well,
and
you mean the actual James Bond himself. I mean, to
yeah,
me, it's the classic Sean Connery.
yeah,
Um, and I know you and I had a little bit of a conversation. And so growing up, what I did with my dad, he was not a big Roger Moore fan, just because it was almost like he was taking Sean Connery's job. But
yes.
me growing up, getting to see the Roger Moore movies, to me, when they were coming out, I actually liked Roger Moore. So this is going to be kind of weird. I actually like Sean Connery the most, probably Daniel Craig, and then Roger Moore. I mean, that's kind of
Wow.
the way I rank him for me personally.
So for me, I remember we were the same age group roughly, you know, and I remember HBO was being big. And so you saw the Roger Moore ones. At that time, I would go to my grandmother's house and see them. But as I look back, there's some periods I didn't really watch much of. I didn't really watch much of Timothy Dalton movies. There's only two of them. And, but I really love Daniel Craig, man. I'm just telling you. And I'll tell you why here in a second. But I ranked him number one. I ranked Sean Connery number two. And then I ranked Pierce Bronson number three. Because in his first movie that Pierce Bronson came out with, Goldeneye,
yeah,
I watched that and I said, oh my God, we put the respect back in James Bond, because that one, he knocked it out of the park. He had the charisma, he had the swagger. I mean, and he looked like him. And then after that, I ranked Roger Moore, and then Timothy Dalton, and then George Lansby, which he only did one. And I've heard high claims of actually Timothy Dalton. I just never really watched but bits and pieces of him. With Roger Moore, the one thing that I felt though with Roger Moore, it almost as if they were striving to push the punchline more than the character with Roger Moore. Now, I got to talk about Daniel Craig, because golly, when I first watched the first movie he came out with, Casino Royale, I was like, holy shit. In the first 10 minutes, I was sold. Because they changed James Bond to an assassin. And they explained what it took. In a lot of Daniel Craig's movies, they explain what it is to be James Bond, what it took to be James Bond. You got to kill two people, da-da-da-da. And you didn't get that before. You didn't know that. You just knew that, hey, this is 007, you know. And so I like that, because it told, and you got to kind of get behind the curtain with Daniel Craig. And that dude's a badass in the shows, you know. So anyway, that's just me and on all that there. So, but I love Sean Connery. I've heard a lot of commentation about him, about people that worked with him. Said he was a good-looking guy. He was a strong-looking guy. He wasn't the most smartest guy, is what I heard, although he doesn't portray that. He portrays that he is intelligent. So, you know, which is good acting, I guess. So, you know, I don't know. So, so we got to talk about the movies a little bit. We're not going to go through all of them. We'll just take like our top 10 or top 5, whatever you want to do, or which ones that struck a chord with you the most, I will say. I would
tell you one, and like I said, my dad, when I was thinking about this, it really brought me back to my childhood. I will remember this. There's kind of, when I was talking to the top 5, I kind of just threw them all together. But I say one of my favorite 5 was Goldfinger. I love a martini, shaken, not stirred. It's like that famous line. And that was like one of the first ones that I actually saw. And if I remember correctly, there's a scene in there where there is a woman that is totally gold, naked.
Yep.
And you're talking about the 21st century, how people would deal with, you know, the word pussy, this and that or whatever. This was in 1964.
Yeah.
And there was pretty much a totally nude woman. Maybe there was a bikini on, but it was painted gold too. So it made it look like her body. And I remember that as a kid going, wow, this was back, you know, even before the late 70s, early 80s when I saw this, that this was, that she was, you know, painted up gold like that. So that was really weird. But that one and From Russia with Love, to me, kind of go together. Mm-hmm. From Russia with Love was, you know, about a year before, I believe. But just that time period, Sean Connery being the way he was, it was a Cold War, you know, the Cold War was going on in one of the two. I'm sure it was From Russia with Love. They kind of go together to me. But there was a whole lot of action scenes in there that I'm thinking, man, they did a whole lot of crazy action scenes back in the 60s. Now, when you think of James Bond, you think of everything exploding and all these crazy scenes of chase and all that. But From Russia with Love and Goldfinger to me are kind of the two when I think the old school James Bond, what I remember.
So kind of crazy. In my top 5, I have Goldfinger number 3, and I got From Russia with Love number 5. The thing I say about Goldfinger, of all the scenarios that's been done with James Bond, and there's many of them, and some of them could be true, and some of them are, okay, that's so far-fetched, it's never going to happen.
Right.
The Goldfinger scenario with the Fort Knox, that's a real scenario. That's a scenario that could happen. Don't put me on the terrorist watch list. I ain't paid nobody. I'm just telling you, that's a scenario that it could happen, man. You're just like, wow, who thought of that? And it's just real to me. So on that part there, and but I thought it was done good with the Goldfinger. You talk about the girl in the Goldfinger that was painted gold, in the Quantum of Solace with Daniel Craig. They did the same thing with oil. They had her killed off, and she was in oil, completely black with oil. And so I do like the fact that the newer James Bonds pay a little homage or do some little quirks with the old stuff. They kind of refer back. They hit those little marks and such. But I think Goldfinger, I told you I ranked it number 3. I ranked From Russia with Love number 5. I ranked Dr. No as number 4 because that's with Ursula Andrews. And I mean, it's just an iconic scene. And that was the first one that, that we got to see on TV really was Dr. No. We didn't know what to expect when we saw that. That's the first one we get to hear from these great books from M. Fleming. Mm-hmm. One that I have close to it, those 6, was GoldenEye, which was Pierce Bronson. Now, like I said, he to me, he opened up some script on that, and that was number 6. But I like those 61, 62, 63, 64 era James Bonds. I agree. I think they put a lot of time in trying to do the action. And they had cool cars all the way through this thing. I mean, the Aston Martins. I got a thing pulled up. The Aston Martin DB5. Hell, it was on. I just watched it last night, and the new one. It's in the new one. He has a couple of different Aston Martins in there. But the DB5's been in like 5 or 6 freaking James Bond movies, And I mean, how can you go wrong with a gorgeous car and a couple other Aston Martins too, to be honest? He's used Mustangs, he's used Lotuses, and he's used a little bit of everything. They even used a Ford Fairlane, the big old Ford Fairlane. But who cannot love an Aston Martin when it comes out?
Yeah, exactly. And the chase scenes are always, to me, that's James Bond. But hey, when going back before we go, I hate to go back and forth with this, but in Goldfinger, I mean, you couldn't. Who in the world came in and said we're going to put somebody's name Pussy Galore? Because Honor Blackman, she was beautiful as an older woman, even at that time. Yeah. But that name, that was crazy for that time. You think this was the mid '60s? This wasn't, 2010. So
what I would like to do is, and I've never read any of the books. I would like to get the book and see if that's what he named her originally, or if that was a script change, or something like that to kind of beef up the persona or something, in the show. I'd like to know if that's really in the book, and I've heard a lot about him, Fleming. I just never read his books, but I heard that he was with the British intelligence in a piece in World War II and things of that nature. So he had some commonality in what he wrote about, So,
well, I guess I'll give you some more in my top 5. Of course, From Russia with Love and Goldfinger. Casino Royale to me might be my all-time favorite. And I hate
the new one,
that. Huh?
The one with Daniel Craig in it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
To me, that's just. I mean, I'm on the edge of my seat even when I watch it now, and I've seen it. But I also have Dr. No. To me, it was probably one of the more humorous ones because I remember it just being kind of humorous. It was funny and a lot of James Bonds, they had, maybe funny, scenes at a time or maybe witty more than funny. Yeah. But I remember Dr. No being very humorous. And then my last one that I throw in there is, it might just be because, like I said, I grew up at the time that I did with Roger Moore, but For Your Eyes Only was in 1980, 81. I was probably 10 or 11 years old, and it was played a lot. And I can remember a lot about that movie. And I saw it again, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and I still love the movie. And it's probably not in most people's top 5 for sure, but for me, it was one that's kind of the time period of when I was growing up. I love that it was, the British was involved in it and in foreign waters, and these superpowers were doing these things. I think just because of my love of history, even at a young age, I think it was one that I enjoyed the plot as well.
Yeah. For me, my top two, I had to fight because Casino Royale is number two.
Oh man.
And it was hard not to put it number one. And the one I put number one is Skyfall with Daniel Craig.
Wow.
Have you seen that, Skyfall?
I have, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen it all. I saw the second.
You got to watch it all because it tells you who he is. It tells you where he came from, which none of them would ever do that. And it also tells you about M and who she is. And I was just like, this is the story. They hit it out of the park. I've seen some people rank it like 12 or whatever, but it tells you who James Bond is, how he became, how they got him in there. And his younger upbringing, it shows where he was raised at. And you're just like, wow, now you know why he's what he is after seeing this. And I just think it's a done well movie. And even in the scene of the where she's in the parliament testifying and they're all badging her about the MI6 and everything else and thinking it's irrelevant. And the dude's about to bust in there and shoot. James Bond's running down the road. And all I can think is, dude, Billy Badass is coming to save the day right now is all I can think about. Because that's what he's doing. He's running there as fast as he can. And they say he's old and they say he's washed up. And then the bad guy comes in and shoots. And in walks James Bond. Shoots couple fire extinguishers to discharge and make it look like smoke. And he takes care of business. And he saves the day. And he prolongs the day, let's say that. And it's so fitting. And it's everything James Bond is supposed to be. It's a build up. And then it has a climax. But in the latter ones, they have a climax and they go to another build up. But I just think it's a great show because you learn who James Bond is where you never knew it before. And so I like that. And but the other thing I'll say is, there's so many things that James Bond brought in to, shaken, not stirred, any witty comment with a young lady, how to walk into a room debonair, let's fix our cuffs, and all those things like that, or even dealing with penny money, just how he talks with penny money. Everything's an innuendo, but everything's not so bad. It's just cute. It's not vulgar. It's just an innuendo. So I don't know.
Another thing I was thinking about, and we didn't even discuss this, what other movies this was, James Bond was a continual thing for, 50 years now.
Yeah.
So what other movies can you think of that maybe James Bond movies inspired? And I can think of three that just came up on the top of my head. I mean, it was actually kind of when you were talking, I could think of like Indiana Jones, the Bourne Identity movies.
Yes.
Maybe something like the Mission Impossible stuff. But, that inspired. I mean, if you think about it, it just kept coming, kind of like the Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible just kept coming. Now we have Fast and Furious, 36? I just like Fast and Furious 9 the other day, and I'm like, this needs to stop. It really needs to stop. But, what do you think about that how it inspired others to continue and even the public wanting to have, another movie, a sequel come out?
So I think, I'll talk on the Bond thing here in a second because anyway, but I think definitely the Bourne Identity, and the Bourne Identity one was Bourne Identity took it to the dark side. So you didn't see all where I think it definitely inspired that. And when I saw Bourne Identity, like, yes, but when I saw Daniel Craig, he's just short of that. I mean, he's very close into that arena side of it. Yeah. I will say with the No Time to Die, they said, I know everybody's read the news about the parts that it'll be Daniel Craig's last movie and all that. That's been posted so much. And that they'll wait a year and then they'll discover out how to do a new Bond. And I'll talk more offline on that because if you watch it, I don't want to give anything away, but there's a couple of things in it. They touch on some things because they kind of give you some take on what a different 007 will be like and things of that nature in there. And then the ending is just, I don't even know. I mean, one thing I'll say is if you think about with, you had the years of Sean Connery, and then you had Roger Moore in between, and then you have some more Sean Connery and Roger Moore. There really wasn't a lot of years of breaks in there, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? I think it might have had like 2 years of a break at the most, and you just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And then they started getting longer on the breaks, and we thought it was done after Pierce Bronson. Then they got this guy out of nowhere, Daniel Craig. To me personally, I think that's who should be the next James Bond. Is some guy we don't even know who the hell he is. It's just that guy. But anyway, so that's just my thought. So, but go ahead, Coach. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I mean, I just think wrapping this one up it's something that, this started in the early 60s. Wait, was 63? Is that the first one?
62. 62 with Dr. No.
Now we're almost 2022. So we have 60 years of films almost.
Yeah.
There's not many things in the history of cinematography and history of movies that they're anywhere close to this that I can think of. There's usually, there might be a, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Indiana Jones things and all that for a number of years for, 8 or 10 years. But we're talking 6 years when we're talking about different stars and different characters and different things. But it's kind of cool that the one thing that I was thinking about wraps it kind of together is that same kind of, spies, the world, chasing, it's kind of like the Bourne Identity and the Bond movies and Indiana Jones always have that falling. If somebody's going to almost die, but don't die, that a lot of movies nowadays kind of take it too far, I think, with like The Matrix and what's the Keanu Reeves? So he gets shot at 635 times and never gets hit.
Yeah.
What movie is that?
John Wick.
Yeah, John Wick. I mean, they're just, it's almost like it's too unreal. But I think back to the Bond movies, they always seem to be, like you said on one, specifically that it could possibly happen. And I think a lot of the movies today, they've gone so far as like, come on, man. Like when you watch Fast and Furious 9, which we showed it to the inmates last week for their 8 weeks, there were guys that are going, man, this is whack. This couldn't even close to happen. Well, with the Bond movies, I always thought, this is possible.
Well, I will say this is No Time to Kill, the newest one. There was a partner, and I go, damn, only James Bond knows how to hit anybody because the rest of them mother flippers can't hit shit.
They got John Wick on them.
No time to die. None of the rest of them can hit anybody, but James Bond, he can hit really good. The rest of them 50 shooting at him couldn't hit shit,
Yeah, after they killed John Wick's dog and he killed everybody in the head with a 45, I thought, okay, this is kind of crazy. Nobody can even shoot him. But I never felt that way with the Bond movies. I always thought, it's kind of on the edge of your seat. Is it going to be, it just felt like it could happen. And, so a little bit more realistic in some of the crazy movies that we have today.
Yeah. So, well, man, this has been good. And I will say No Time to Die is what it's called, not No Time to Kill.
I got to see it.
You got to go see it. It is worth it. It's 2 hours and 43 minutes. I loved every bit of it. Except the last 5 minutes. Yes, Dr. Zhivago.
My mom made me see that movie as a kid, and I wanted to kill myself at the age of 6.
We saw it together, I think, in Longview with the church group.
God, that is true. Didn't we all go? And there was like an intermission. It was so long.
Yes.
I wanted to run off into traffic.
I liked it because I've never been around snow, and I was like, snow,
Hey, Vet, before we go, I have to tell you, I've had this vision, my mom making me go to the movie, but I totally forgot that was the church, the Nazarene church took. Isn't that right? Everybody went in, your mom and my mom.
Your mom took us, and it was you and I were the only boys, and there's like 5 girls that went, so. Yeah.
I always think about that as I think that's where my younger life anxiety started at Dr. Zhivago and Long.
Oh man. Yep. That was a classic though. We were just too young to appreciate it, very too young to appreciate it. Well, hey, let us know what your James Bond's favorite is. Or hey, if you don't like Daniel Craig, let us know. Or if you don't like Sean Connery, who don't like Sean Connery? Or you don't like Roger Moore, let us know. But we want to know who your favorite is. We want to know who your favorite character is and all that stuff. So we've got to buzz out of here. And too bad I don't have no James Bond theme music. I don't have the rights to it anyhow.
No.
Yeah. Or us walking down a hole like that, you know, that's pretty badass. But I'm going to say from the coach.
Into the vet.
Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned.